What's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to show you guys how to properly solder two wires together. Now we're going to go over this step by step. So first thing you're going to do is strip your wire. Once you strip your wire, it'll look similar to that. A lot of people think it's best to twist the wires up, but when you're doing something like this, you don't want to do that. If it's all over the place, like a bad hair day, just straighten it up just so it looks something similar to that. This one's also good to go. So when you first go to connect them, don't connect them on top of each other. You want to give yourself a little bit of space, just about right there. And then you're going to wrap one side over the other and then interlock them. So right about there. So wrap the one side first. Then you can bring on the other side. So the reason I use two different kinds of copper is to show you guys, you saw the copper side, which was the red, is now on this side, and the silver copper is on this side. So you can pull as hard as you want on these two and they're not going anywhere, because as you give them tension, it's locking inside of the copper. So there's just nowhere for this to go. And then as a second line of defense, we're also gonna hit it with some solder. Then we're gonna hit it with some heat shrink. So when you go to solder, you're not actually soldering with the iron. You're just using the iron to get the copper hot. And then you're gonna be moving your solder around the wire. I like to prime it a little bit just so it can get a little bit on there, just so it gives helps it heat up the copper a bit. And as it gets hot, you'll be able to use the solder and go on the copper, and it'll actually heat it because it's so hot. This is a little bit of thicker wire, so it's not as quick if you're using just like a standard like 18 gauge or something like that. Now, with something like this, this is what you want. There's no blobs or anything like that. You can just see it that it actually sucks the solder into the copper. So you can still see a full outline. If you see any blobs, that means the solder didn't actually absorb into the copper, so it's kind of just sitting there for no reason at all. And it's gonna end up falling off and be a whole mess. And then, my favorite way to do this is you can use electrical tape. I don't like using electrical tape. It's just to hit it with a piece of heat shrink. Just gonna cap it on top, slide it through, put it right over. Might have used a little bit of too small of a gauge. Yeah, I did. A little bit too small. Should be able to get it to go. And you definitely want to wait a second to use the heat shrink, because if the wire's still hot, it'll actually heat the heat shrink, shrinking it so you can't pull it over. So that's pretty much what you want right there. Actually, I missed a spot, I'm sorry. Yeah, I might have used a little bit too small. Yeah, well, mine's a little bit too small, but I'll show you anyway. I just pulled a piece to show you guys. Hit it with a lighter. You can use a heat gun. Pretty much anything that puts off heat, even like a hair iron. Then once you see it pretty much fits like an Under Armour, you're good to go. That is how you properly lock two wires together, because if you pull at this as hard as you can, it's not going anywhere. Later, guys.